All right, so looking at the Ming and Qing dynasties here today. So going to the pair deck, we'll go ahead and hit start here. I think everyone, or mostly everyone's in. So we're pretty much almost through all of the empires here that we're talking about in China. I know we went kind of quick, but just kind of a symptom of everything that's happening is just kind of having to get through these topics fairly fast. But we've talked about the period of disunion, the Sui dynasty, the Tang dynasty, the Song dynasty. Those were from last week, Monday. And then last week, Wednesday, we talked about the Mongols and Genghis Khan. And then scrolling through here, we left off there at the end of the Mongols. So today, our warm-up question here, starting with a true or false question, thinking back to the Mongols from Wednesday. So true or false, the Mongols forced people they took over to change their customs, which made them very unpopular as rulers. So is that true or false? All right, let's check our responses. Looks like we are at 13 false and 6 true. 14 false, 5 true. All right. Yeah, I see people are changing their answers. That's okay, because this one is false. So the Mongols, remember, they were brutal with their tactics and how they took people over. So when they were actually fighting or in war, they were a pretty brutal and kind of ends justify the means sort of group. But once they had taken over a group of people, they were actually very peaceful in how they ruled them. They allowed them to keep their own customs. They allowed them to keep their own religions, which is very important, because the Mongols were kind of a spiritual people. They believed in their own God. But if they took over, say, Christians or Muslims, then they allowed them to continue to practice that religion. And they were actually fairly popular as rulers, even in China, where Kublai Khan was in control. Even though he was not Chinese himself, they managed to keep control, at least for a little while, of the area of China. So, yes, that one was false. Good. So then on the homework, you guys talked about the Ming Dynasty, which was started by this guy named Hong Wu, who is mostly known for being able to get rid of the Mongols in China. So even though Kublai Khan was liked as a ruler, they once he was gone, that power struggle. The people of China didn't really want to deal with that, and so they kicked them out. And so this is going to kind of lead to more Chinese control again under Hong Wu, who is going to be very brutal in making sure that he and other Ming Dynasty rulers kept control of their country. They kind of feared people within the government trying to overthrow them and had rivals executed, all that sort of stuff. Very brutal themselves in trying to keep control. So then you guys looked at, read a little bit about Zhang He, the great explorer who really helped to kind of put China back on the map, sailing all around the world, or at least through the Indian Ocean all the way to Africa, and back to China, trading all along the way. An important part of that is that they never colonized. They were not like European explorers who were going to places like North America kind of with the purpose of making them a colony and taking their resources back. They were all about trading and making these positive relationships with the people that they explored with. So then on the homework, there was a short article talking about the possibility of Zhang He making it to North America. So kind of a quick recap question here. Do you think that Zhang He made it to North America on his voyages? What do you think? So that to get there, he would have had to sail across the Pacific Ocean. All All right, let's see our thoughts. Got a no, we got a yes. We've got a no, there wasn't enough proof of it. No, probably, no. Got a no, a yes, a few more no's, a few yeses, a few no's. Looks like we're kind of mixed here on our opinions of this. I do agree that there probably is kind of a lack of evidence of him actually doing so. I definitely think it was possible for him to have made it to North America. His ships were large enough. His navigation skills were good enough. Did he make it to North America? I would say I doubt it, but if more evidence were to show up, I think that points to it. Then I definitely think I would personally change my answer, because there's a lot of different thoughts here, but. Yeah, good. Kind of an interesting thought, right? That Zhang He made it to North America before the Europeans did. Would have been a very different world if they had decided to kind of settle there. The other one you talked about, or you looked at in the homework, was the Great Wall of China. Most of it was completed during the Ming Dynasty. So the video talked about the fact that a lot of it was also built during the Han Dynasty. But kind of the wall as we know it today was completed mostly during the Ming Dynasty, connecting all of them together to make that one giant wall. And kind of the purpose of it was to keep people out, right? That's what the Great Wall of China was for. Particularly the Mongols, they had just kicked out. They wanted to keep them out. They were also concerned about tribes in the north that were still a part of China, but trying to come down and attack the capital city of Beijing. And that's what the wall was kind of meant to do. So after Zhang He's death, they are actually going to develop a policy of isolation, which essentially means that once Zhang He was done kind of with his exploration, they decided that they were just going to keep to themselves. They decided to shut off trade from the rest of the world, so you didn't have people traveling by land or by sea to get into China. The Great Wall of China is going to kind of be a symbol of this, right? Running along the northern border here with Mongolia, meant to keep people out of China. They did not want any visitors. So why do you think they did this? What would be the purpose of isolating yourself or your country from the rest of the world? All right. So it's smarter to do so. Zhang He being a peacemaker, there was no peacemakers left. That's an interesting thought. To not let people know different lifestyles so they can keep their goodies. I like the way that's worded. Kind of right. To keep safe from the world, prevent any outside diseases from getting into their country. That's an interesting thought too. There was some sort of threat. The safest choice, safety in case of war or battles, less chance of disease and protection, keep people safer, good, lower chance of invaders, no more battles, no more wars, avoid people invading, keep to themselves, keep themselves safe, prevent threats. It's safe. Yeah, good. So yeah, the policy of isolation really comes from them worrying about outside invaders kind of ruining their way of life, right? They did not want to have Mongols come in and bring their customs and cultures. They didn't want Europeans to come in and bring in particularly new religions. They wanted to keep things like Christianity out. And they also decided that they didn't need to trade with anyone. And that's going to be something we'll talk about here in the next dynasty, is that they felt that there was nothing to gain from trade since they had all of the good stuff themselves. So, the person that said they wanted to keep their goodies, yeah, you're not wrong. It's a good way of putting it. So, looking at the Great Wall, I think I talked about this in the video. They have this giant wall that they have along their northern border with the express purpose of keeping people out. Was the Great Wall effective? Yes or no? All right, let's see where we stack up here. Got 12, 13 to 6, 13 yeses, 6 nos. All right. So when thinking about whether the Great Wall was effective, when it comes down to it, really, it wasn't that effective in what it was trying to do. So the wall did exist before the Mongols came in, and it wasn't able to keep them out. And then, unfortunately, the group of people that they were trying to keep out with the Great Wall, the Manchu people of northern China, were also able to overcome this Great Wall. So wall didn't exactly work, didn't keep people out, didn't prevent them from falling. But so in 1644, this new group of people are going to invade. They are still Chinese, though. It is important to note they're just kind of from northern China. They're just a different group of people. But they managed to take over the capital city. They overthrow the Ming dynasty, and they established the Qing dynasty. It's spelled with a Q there, but it's pronounced like king with a K. The Qing dynasty of China is going to be established. And now what's really important about them is they're going to continue that policy of isolation started by the Ming dynasty. They don't want outside influences to come in and, bring new religions, bring new ways of life, bring new types of government, right? This is around or getting close to the time of the Enlightenment in Europe. So they have this system where they have an emperor and a bureaucracy around him in place, and they don't want people coming in and suggesting things like democracy or certain freedoms that people should have. So they didn't want those sort of things to come in and ruin kind of the way of life for people. But that being said, the Qing dynasty was able to thrive even without these sorts of connections to the outside world. So they extend the empire to its greatest size. Their internal economy, even though they're not trading with anyone on the outside world, was still very, very strong. And things were going fairly well for the most part at the beginning of the Qing dynasty. Now, in the 1700s, we're seeing more explorers from Europe starting to travel around, and Chinese products, since this policy of isolation had been put in place, had kind of slowed to a halt from coming into Europe. So things like porcelain, things like silks still, things like certain spices and teas coming from China. They weren't really coming to Europe. And so the British in the 1700s decide that they're going to try and kind of reopen China back up to the rest of the world. China really hadn't been trading with anyone since the Ming dynasty. So it had been a few hundred years. And so the British send this guy, Lord George Macartney, essentially with the express purpose of becoming friends with the people in China so that they can trade with them. That was kind of his only job, is go and be nice to the people in China so that we can trade with them and get what we want from them. But unfortunately, he doesn't do so. He's supposed to be friendly to these people, and yet he gets to meet the Chinese emperor, and he refuses to bow to the Chinese emperor. For some reason, his pride got in the way of kneeling before an emperor that wasn't his own British queen. And so because of that, because of the disrespect that he showed the people of China and the emperor of China, he gets kicked out. And so the Qing dynasty, they had kind of did this as sort of a trial run, I guess, right? Trying to see if one European can come in and establish trade. But they couldn't do it. And so the Qing dynasty is not really too bothered by this because they didn't really want to trade with the British a whole lot anyway, because the stuff that Macartney brought wasn't that good. And so the people of China and the Qing dynasty said, we don't need to trade with them because we have our own better stuff here. We don't need the rest of the world. We'll just continue to stay isolated from everyone else. And so that was kind of the main idea of the Qing dynasty, is this policy of isolation. All right. So we will finish that Pear Deck there with that. So I'll hit end here. Okay. So, what time is it? It's 8:20. Okay. We'll go ahead. Yeah, so here's what I'm gonna do. I'm gonna assign the project today just so you have it. But Wednesday's really gonna be our work day for it. So yeah. So I'll post it at least today and talk about the directions here. So I gotta create the assignment here. There's timeline project. Add a couple of things here. This one. Oops, student, make a copy. Oh, yeah, student's going to be question. Is the project easy? I think so. And I'm going to make sure you guys have enough time to do it for sure, too. So, okay, so I'll put this under project guidelines. I'm not going to set a due date for it yet. So, okay. That looks good. Okay, so should be posted here, should be the new first thing you see on the stream. So when you open it up, you'll see there are the two attachments there. There is one that it says Google Drawing, and then one that says the Google Doc with the directions. So if you could open up both of them really, but open up the directions here first, and I'll talk about them real quick, and then I'll show you how the drawing itself works, and then we'll be good for today. Already fixing a grammar problem I saw. All right. So looking at the directions here, we covered a lot of stuff, right? So looking at the years 581 through 1911 is when the Qing dynasty ends. We covered all of that kind of in the last week or so. It was a lot of stuff, I know, and we kind of went through it fairly quickly. So that's why we're doing this project here, to kind of help us consolidate a lot of the information that I've talked about into one spot. So reading through the directions here, says over the last 2 weeks, we have covered several of China's empires that came after the fall of the Han Dynasty in 220. Now we will work to consolidate our information about these empires into an easier to read timeline. So the timeline you will use will be attached to this document. So that was the other part of the assignment, is this document that looks like this. So I'll talk about it. It's already created for you, which is nice. You just have to kind of add your information here. So below it says, I have included the correct number of boxes for you already on the timeline. These are the events you should cover in each. So there are 7 of them, and it's basically the dynasties that we talked about, right? So the period of disunion, and then the 6 dynasties, the Sui, Tang, Song, Yuan, Ming, and Qing dynasties. So basically for each one, you're going to be filling in the timeline with the important information from these 4 questions. So make sure you answer these 4 questions here. Number 1, what year did the empire begin and end? Number 2, who are the most important leaders / people of the empire? Approximately 1 to 2 for each. Letter C, what were 2 major events or inventions that came during this empire? And then number 4, why did this empire decline or end? So what happened to end the empire? So there are those 4 questions. And so all of these questions will be answered using information from Chapter 11, Sections 1 and 2, and Chapter 17, Section 3. So there are 2 spots in the textbook here. Chapter 11, Sections 1 and 2 will cover 1 through 5. The period of disunion through the Yuan. And then Chapter 17, Section 3 is the Ming and Qing dynasties. So 2 spots in the book. And then you will also want to use and include information from the PowerPoint we went over in class. So there are the recordings of those PowerPoints that we did in class on Google Classroom. So you can go back and watch those videos to see those PowerPoints again. And then today's I'm recording right now. So you'll be able to go back and look at the information we talked about today as well in this video right now. So a couple of different spots to get your information from and to fill in the timeline. So the timeline itself here, like I said, it should be pretty straightforward. The boxes are already made, and the titles of each of the empires are also already filled in. You've got the period of disunion at the top through the Qing Dynasty. So to fill it in, you'll see on the left here is the place to put the years. It says 20XX through 20XX. You just have to delete that and type in the new years that you find from the textbook. And then in the boxes itself, you'll see that there's just some nonsense words there. It's Latin. It's literally Latin nonsense. But it says here in the first box, you just delete that text and type, "This is my answer here." Really, it's just there to make sure you know where the text boxes are so you don't have to make a new one. So yeah, just delete the text that's there and type your answer over it in each of the boxes answering those questions. Now, at the bottom here is the kind of important note. So I am planning on doing a quiz over China, but I'm going to wait until after winter break. Reason being is I don't want to try and do another test virtually. And as of now, the plan is to go back to school after break, and I'm hoping that that stays true. So that way we can take this quiz in class. But either way, regardless of how we do this quiz, this will be an open note test, as in you can use this timeline. So the more information you have on your assignment on this timeline, the more information you'll have to use on this quiz when we eventually get to it. So yeah, do your best on this project, and then you'll get to use it on the test. All right, cool. So a lot of directions there, but are there any questions right away here about the project? Would we get marked down if we were to look up the answers? So what I'll say for that is that kind of the important thing about this is that you're going to be using this project on this open note test. And I'm making the test. The questions on the test are from the textbook, like are from the information that you find in the textbook. So if you Google something and you find some random leader of the Sui dynasty that isn't mentioned in the textbook, then that's not going to be very helpful for you. So when you get to the test, so I would definitely say use the textbook, because that's where you'll find, or use the textbook and the PowerPoints that we've covered, the videos. So that way you have good information to use on this open note test, and you don't have a whole bunch of random stuff that we never talked about and that won't show up on the test at all. So yeah, definitely use the textbook here. All right. Any other questions then? When is it due? I didn't set a due date for it yet. I'll talk about a due date on Wednesday. It's not going to be due before the end of the week. If I had to guess, it'll be due after break. Pretty much, I guess I can say this. The due date will be whenever we take the quiz, which will be sometime after break. So, but I'm still going to give you guys time to work on it on Wednesday too, and maybe Friday. So yeah, no technical due date yet, but I'll let you guys know once I know more. I'm not going to just suddenly spring a due date on you, though. I'll make sure you guys have time. Okay, cool. So if there are no other questions, then we will go ahead and end things there. Like I said, I just wanted to assign the project for now so that you have it. If you wanted to start working on it, you can. But otherwise, we'll have time to work on it on Wednesday. So yeah. Otherwise, I hope you guys have a good Monday. Remember, if you have any outstanding assignments, make sure those get done. The test, particularly, but also the other project, the French Revolution Slides project. Make sure those get turned in as well. But yeah, otherwise, I'll see you guys on Wednesday. I hope you guys have a good Monday.